Stampede in Hatrash, in a town named Hatrash located in Uttar Pradesh. A religious gathering was organized by the management of a holy man named Narayan Sarkar Hari alias Bhole Baba. About 150,000 devotees attended that gathering. According to the media report, the gathering site was not fit to accommodate more than 80,000 visitors. For some reason, panic broke out in the crowd, leading to chaos. As the chaos died down, it turned out about 150 visitors died of stampede. Most of the dead were women, children, and elderly men. One of the local media reported in their eyewitness account that Bhole Baba is a westernized holy man attired in suit and tie. He was a former employee of the Intelligence Department of Police. He took voluntary retirement before starting his current profession. Lalantop, a local media, has pointed out that the issues of safety and security in a large gathering should be the concern of the local municipal administration. Therefore, why and how 150,000 visitors were allowed at a site having capacity for half that number? Arrangement for safety and security at an assembly site is the responsibility of the local municipal administration. The logical question therefore arises, according to the media, whether the responsible authorities are answerable to the tragic loss of life. Let's take a listen to the statement of a reporter speaking in Hindi.
हादसा होने के बाद तो सब जाएंगे ही, क्यों नहीं जाएंगे? लखनऊ में उठ के क्या करेंगे? लखनऊ में अब जो है वहाँ पे लंगड़ा आम खाने का समय तो है नहीं भाई। अभी तो 122 लोगों की मौत हुई है, लेकिन सवाल ये है कि ये हुआ कैसे भाई? जो सीएम योगी खुद, उनको इस पे रिपोर्ट लेनी चाहिए। सरकार की इस पे क्या जिम्मेदारी है? प्रधानमंत्री ने इस पे शोक जताया, तमाम नेता शोक जताएंगे। हादसा क्या, हादसों के हवाले ही आम आदमी की जिंदगी है? सवाल ये है, कहीं भी हादसा हो जाता है, कहीं भी कुछ हो जाता है भाई। ये ऐसा कुछ है नहीं, ये मानव निर्मित हादसा है ना। भक्तों की एक भीड़ है। मैं भी एक बाबा के उसमें कार्यक्रम में गया था कवरेज के लिए, तो वो जो स्थिति देख के लगता है, क्योंकि वहाँ पे जो आदमी होता है वो दूसरे माइंडसेट में होता है। मैं जब जा रहा था वहाँ पे तो पैर रखने तक की जगह नहीं थी, बच्चे थे, धूप में एकदम से भीड़ इकट्ठा थी, कोई बीमार हो, कोई कैसे, लेकिन अब उनकी तो अपनी आस्था है, वो तो उनकी भक्ति है।
In reference to this tragic incident, the Indian Prime Minister and several members of the Parliament expressed condolences to the affected families. Our intention is not to criticize or praise anyone who might be directly or indirectly linked to this tragic incident. We would like to pinpoint the remarkable differences between those who are supposedly the guardian of the society responsible for social administration and those that are stampeded to death. Those who belong to the community of social guardians who control the power and responsibility of social administration, they are never ever stampeded. They are far too well fortified and secured. Those who were stampeded in this gathering, let's take a close look at them.
थोड़ी देर में दूंगा, मैं बता दो उनको।
मैं सभी घायलों के जल्द से जल्द ठीक होने की कामना करता हूं। राज्य सरकार की देखरेख में प्रशासन राहत और बचाव कार्य में जुटा हुआ है। केंद्र सरकार के वरिष्ठ उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार के लगातार संपर्क में है। मैं इस सदन के माध्यम से सभी को ये भरोसा देता हूं कि पीड़ितों की हर तरह से मदद की जाएगी।
They can't express thoughts in English. Consequently, they do not understand proceedings of court, have no access to higher education, therefore can't acquire skill, can't compete with Anglophone fellow Indians. They are marginalized. They lead the life of a stranger in their own country, yet they are keeping India's language, literature, history, culture, tradition alive. Indian food, dress, lifestyle lives within them. They make up 95% of India's population. They enjoy the privilege of electing their leaders every 5 years and thereby keeping alive India's glory of being the largest democracy in the world. Let us take a closer look at the mass of genuine Indians. Residents of a small poor village in the jungle on the border of India and Bangladesh. About 30 to 35 different taxes are collected from these masses of humanity. That number over 1 billion and get deposited in the government treasury. This massive wealth is the main attraction of Indian politics and its leaders. These marginalized populations are the main strength and backbone of the nation. Stampede in India is a recurring incident and affects mainly this marginalized community we are seeing now. Then what is the sense of reintroducing the same marginalized community in the context of a new incident of Stampede? The guardians of society will now be activated to oversee victims of Stampede. This guardian class have far more differences than similarities with the affected community. Let's look at the physical appearance of the guardians. These are the guardians of Indian society. They are Anglophones. These guardians are expected to provide services to the 95% marginalized population who can't express thoughts in English and who are vulnerable to Stampede. The world of the guardians is inaccessible and impenetrable to the majority marginalized population. Now India is the most populous nation on earth. The recognition and importance of the political leaders of India, the guardians of Indian society, is not because of the quality or any achievement of leaders and leadership, but primarily because of the huge, impoverished, marginalized population they represent. Over the last 75 years, especially during the last few decades, news of India's economic growth is widely circulated mainly by the Western mainstream media. Not a shred of benefit from the so-called economic growth has reached these marginalized 95% for the last 75 years. It will not reach them in yet another 75 years or more. Death by Stampede is a recurring incident in the Indian society. Look at this data. How the Stampede took place, who is at fault, who should be punished, who should be compensated and how much. We do not intend to deal with those issues. We just want to emphasize that such incidents and loss of life are the resultant and reflection of social chaos, disorder, and miserable political leadership. A nation that is in possession of such huge geographical landmass, unlimited natural resources, and such massive human resources, though neglected and marginalized, her richness and potential is unfathomable. The history teaches us political leadership of a nation that is unable to utilize its God-gifted wealth for the benefit of its own people. They are destined to suffer savage plunder, oppression, and slavery. India is the case in point. In contrast, nations whose political leadership have utilized God-gifted wealth for the benefit of their own nation are enjoying reverence and respect of the world. The most precious gift of a nation is her human resources. Only a very high-quality political leadership can condition human resource with indigenous language, culture, history, and tradition. A human resource thoroughly conditioned with indigenous qualities and motivated to render dedicated service to the nation acquires the most formidable and invincible arsenal to reach the peak of prosperity and development. Not just for self, but for the greater world. Such a political leadership and their nation command great respect of the world population on one hand and savage resistance and barbaric sabotage of the military-industrial complex and their allies on the other. Transformation and reshaping of marginalized underclass takes place through schooling. Nations that have made great strides towards prosperity have, almost without exception, induced drastic reforms of their schooling and education system as the most effective means of shaping their human resource into greatest wealth rather than liability. The first and most important tool for achieving such a goal is schooling and education. National resources are to be liberally invested in the sector of schooling and education to build, maintain and operate world-class educational institutions. Thoroughly indigenous education system to be installed there. Exposure of nation to that kind of education is destined to bring about sustainable prosperity, growth and development. These stampeded class of marginalized population of India are bearing the legacy of a rich civilization of 10,000 years. Their transformation and prosperity are the prosperity of the whole nation. The high-quality political leadership is required to transform these marginalized masses of human beings into the wonders of the world. How can that be achieved? Who could achieve such an apparently impossible task? There is a tiny, little, insignificant political party called Aam Aadmi Party. For the last 10 years, this party has been tirelessly working to convince the Indian nation why it is necessary to build world-class schools and schooling where these marginalized masses of underclass can be metamorphosed as formidable arsenal to realize true potential of our nation. A well-planned, well-thought-out outline complete with well-researched data was made available to the public explaining why and how to achieve that apparent impossible task. Their plans have been partially implemented. A section of the marginalized class has been impressed and convinced of their purpose and sanctity. Their works produced partial results. The curse turned into blessings. In 10 years, this tiny little party was recognized as a national political party. On the flip side, the vested interest group mobilized their all-powerful resources and state machineries to oppose and crush them. Why? Because of all the elected members of the public offices, every second one has a criminal record and every third one is semi-illiterate. Here is the data that summarizes the quality of India's political leadership. If the massive marginalized human resource of India, under the initiative and drive of AAP, remains exposed to their reform school and schooling, that accomplishment alone will draw attention of the world towards India, not because it is the most populated nation on earth, but as one of the most formidable and powerful nations capable of valuable contribution to the world civilization. Those who are the initiators and torch-bearers of such a goal, has India, the nation, decorated them with highest honor? Is the nation supporting them with all available resources? Have they become the darling of the nation? No, nothing like that has come about. The leadership of this party, instead of honor, they are languishing in prison. Try to grasp the reality and make others understand who are dedicated to protect your interest and who are out to deceive you with misfortune and disinformation.